All right. Happy Tuesday. August. Whoops.
August, yes.
See? There
Yes.
it is.
Yep, there we go.
August 18th, and I'm hanging out in Lake Orion with this guy. I think most people know Mr. Peter Toering. He is branch manager for Lake Orion and co-branch manager up in Lapeer.
Yep.
Lapeer. And so he and I often will talk in batting ideas. I don't know if everybody knows it, so we'll share this, but chairman and co-chair of the education committee for the North Oakland County Board of Realtors. So we get to chat a lot for a lot of different reasons. But one of the big conversations, and of course we call this hot topic for a reason, is we want to hit what's hot now. What's one of the biggest things? AI. It's really just two letters. I shouldn't go that direction. AI, artificial intelligence. And if you haven't used it, it really is something that you need to, as a minimum, just start playing with. So, real estate, I was sharing with these guys that maybe it's just looking for a car, or what kind of car should I look for a particular situation. There's many things that it can do, and quite interesting, the answers that you're going to be able to come up with. But Peter and I were talking very specifically real estate.
Yeah.
And where did you go with it?
And if you are not technologically savvy, have no fear, because today we are not teaching you how to use AI. We are not doing anything. What we're teaching is what you need to know from a conversation standpoint. So this is the conversations that you should be having with your clients about their usage of AI. And then to be aware of some of the pitfalls. We're going to show you some examples teach you a little bit about why AI does what it does. So that, because we're seeing a lot of our agents that are coming into listing appointments, and their clients have already kind of done their own miniature CMA, or they have their own opinion of value.
As a matter of fact, that was part of it. Is what do you say? Because we almost need to know what AI is going to tell a seller, or what AI should tell a buyer. And frankly, with some of it, I think it go back to Zillow, and Zestimates, which started a real pain in our sides. But AI, at least with what I've played with so far, and I'm enough to be dangerous and know that, hey, we need to start looking. But it was fairly accurate on two things that I had pulled up for what I would actually list a property at. So
yeah, and the way to start this is to understand what AI's purpose is, right? There's a reason that ChatGPT is free. Anything that is free, you are the product, right? So there was a reason that Facebook is free. There's a reason that Instagram is free. Your data and your information is the product that's being sold to advertisers. If you notice now, ChatGPT even has ads on it. So number one, be careful when you're putting personal information into AI. But what AI is designed to do, like Facebook, is it's algorithmic. So it's designed to give you a positive feedback loop to keep you engaged for as long as humanly possible. Just like Facebook.
You got to say that positive part, because I think that's something that goes into the response that we're going to get.
So AI is designed to try and it's designed to tell you what you want to hear. So if you're asked, so for example, let's use a medical question. If I cut my finger open and I took a picture of it and I said, Chat, do you think I can take care of this cut at home? It would say, yeah, I think that's reasonable. And if I open a new window and said, Chat, do I need to go to the emergency room? They'd say, this is a very reasonable way to seek, or item to seek care for. John, who's sitting next to me, just put in, is it reasonable for an 80-year-old woman to drive a Ford Raptor? And it said, of course it's reasonable. And we said, what? So it's telling you what you want to hear. I'll
share with it, just because we brought up the aspect of a car. I had a good friend who was going to buy a car for his college freshman, who's going to be at Michigan Tech in winter. And he actually threw in, and I think this is important, because he was on GM's AI, whatever that is. But he said, you have to ask for an unbiased opinion. That's how much you need to take a look at it. in how understanding it really is
Yeah.
of what you want, but it's have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I love the aspect that you put it as a positive
Yeah.
reinforcement to what you want.
And what it will try and do is you'll see AI will never end your conversation. So it will always ask you more questions, and you'll see that it becomes this kind of circular conversation. So it'll come back to the same things. It'll ask you the same question in different ways, because its whole goal is the more time that you spend on there, right? Just like with network ratings. Remember when we used to have like TV network ratings for advertisers? Those network ratings, the more time that people watch your show, the more your ad value is worth, right? So same thing with AI. If they have 10 million people that spend a minute on there versus 10 million people that spend 20 minutes or 40 minutes, your ad revenue is going up, not to mention the data they're collecting.
So let me throw this out, because, you know, we always hear about Chat GPT. They're probably the big original.
Yeah.
And yet, when you open up, you're using Chrome here, right?
Yep.
Gemini, that's Chrome. And that is Google's AI. And I don't know, because I didn't throw Peter this preparation in advance of it. Is there a difference?
There's going to be, so a lot of the differences are going to be stylistic. So they're going to be pulling from different places. Some of them have different algorithmic models. I don't know that we need to get way in the weeds on that. The other one that I would, if you are considering diving in, if you're doing anything creative, Claude, Claude, is probably the best one. I know Jay Bellinger is a big fan of that. John Robinson here in our office is a big fan of it. We've used it for flyers, for things like that. Although I will tell you, be careful with getting into a rabbit hole, because especially for creative, with the time it spends trying to fix things and get things right, you could have just done it yourself on a Canva, or talk to your administrator to just kind of do it for you.
So then let's do this, because that was a little bit of a, we'll call it, answer a few general questions as to what we should be aware of, but let's go ahead and focus on what we talked about, which is what's the discussions and why?
Yeah, so let's start actually on the buy side. And then we can go to the list side. I think on the buy side, the things that people are looking at from an AI perspective are like any other buyer fear, right? Just because the technology is changing doesn't mean our sales technique really changes. It just gets tweaked. So this is just, version 3.0 of the Zestimate. That's all it is. Which, by the way, the Zestimate, if anyone's noticed, they've basically given up. So if you see the Zestimates on a property that's just been listed, even if the Zestimates were way off previously, all of a sudden they get real close, like within 1% of the listing price, because they figured out that we've figured out better than they have, right? So they've figured out that the human element is certainly, not going anywhere. So
and by the way, that's good verbal judo. The human factor. The computer can't do what we are able to do. It can't process what we can process.
Right.
So when we are talking, that's verbal judo, to be able to remember when you do have to deal with either AI or a Zestimate or any other type of AVM, which I don't want to assume everybody knows that. AVM, automated valuation model.
Yeah.
And if you see RVM, it's the same thing, but it means realtor valuation model.
And there's a bunch of different ones. They're in RPR. And not that they don't have their place, especially if you're just starting on, or especially on a listing that you have no idea where to start. You've got a neighborhood there's 400,000 and 600. You can start there, especially if it's a house you haven't seen. But with a buyer, really, it's the same thing that every buyer worries about, right? Is what happens if I find another house I like more? Are there going to be things wrong with the house? Am I paying too much? Right. And then really, am I making a good decision? Right. With even purchasing in the market. So and I don't think there's anything wrong with a buyer using a Chat GPT or Gemini to start some of these things. But the problem is AI is going to give them searchable information. Right. So really, when you go into Google now, every time you enter anything into Google, it's using AI you can actually have a conversation right in Google's search bar. What concerns me is that, number one, it can't tell them the whole story. It can't interpret data. And then also it doesn't understand the hyper local nature of real estate. So it doesn't understand why Clarkston schools are different than Brandon schools, right? Because like where you live, Dave, you're within a half a mile of Brandon schools. So if you just went a half mile from your house, you're going to see some houses that are worth $150,000 less than yours because they're in a different school district, right? And they don't understand that.
Even the aspect of when you say hyper, it could be across the road because it's in a different subdivision.
Yes. Yep.
And you're day and night in regards to what the values would be.
Or you could be in Macomb County where subdivision names mean nothing. Because you might have Fox Hill subdivision and there's 5 different variants of it, but they're all comparable to each other. So it doesn't kind of understand that part. On the listing side, obviously we are seeing, and we're going to go into some real world examples on some of these. On the listing side, most of it has been related to pricing. So it's what's my house worth. And what's very important about AI is the prompts are going to dictate how it responds. So, and we'll kind of go into some examples of that. But if you ask, should I sell my house for $600,000 versus what should I sell my house for versus what should I buy this house for, it's going to give you very different answers. And we'll see. I wonder, can I actually share my?
Yeah.
Let me hop in and share my screen. But that's normally on the list side, we're talking value. So one of the things that becomes a little bit problematic when you're talking about just like any value model is number one, they have no idea what the subject house looks like.
Did you ever log in?
No, I'm logging in right now. They don't know what the subject house, the house that you're listing, they don't know what it smells like. They don't know how well it shows. It can't analyze pictures well enough to really tell you how comparable it is. It can't analyze the kind of deferred maintenance or updated maintenance that you may have. And we all know that we've walked into houses where the pictures do not look anything like the house, right? Where you walk in and you go, what in the heck happened to this place? Right? It looks like a bomb went off in here. Or I have a great example. I have a listing right now. Looks amazing in the photos. They smoked in it. That's going to take a huge, so when that sells, that's going to take a huge dip on value from its comps. So if you just looked at the pictures, you're not going to be able to understand why something undersold or oversold, right? So we all understand, we're not going to go into why you should or shouldn't sell things at certain prices. We all understand how those things go into it. So I would encourage you, if you've been using, and I'm going to have to mute this and.
Yes, you will.
Mute me. There we go. I think this
We're getting Peter signed in on his own computer here if you're wondering what we're doing.
Yeah. What is it again? HGT 20.
Give him just a moment, because if he was going to be able to multitask like that, I'd have been really impressed.
No, I can't.
Okay.
So what we're going to do here is we're going to share my screen. And I want to show you really what we're kind of dive into, and I'm going to kind of break down for you how it answers questions. So we're going to do this. We're going to share my screen. So this is ChatGPT. And what we started with was I started just with this property in Attica, because that's where I live. So you guys get to be a part of that. And I asked in 2 different incognito windows. So they're totally separated, because chat will, it'll remember you, and it will remember what you've asked in the past, right? And it will understand some of your information. So you want to do it, if you're going to try and kind of split test this, you want to kind of look at this. So here's an example. How much should I pay for this? What's the first thing it said? I'd be careful paying too much, right? And it gives me a target price. Oh, my target price is basically where the property is already listed. And a couple of things it breaks down is, so, okay, what happened? What was its previous listing history? Which you need to be careful there, right? Because previous listing history and previous sale history are not always the same. And here, for example, this actually changes its highest and best use changed. So that may not even be the same, right? We don't know if it was an adult foster care. It was probably based on their P&L or a gross rent multiplier or something like that when they came up with the value. So there are some interesting things that you can look at there. What this will do is, so it's giving you a couple of ranges depending on what you're thinking of doing with it, what the condition of the property might be. But if you notice this, what are we doing here? What is it doing again? It's asking me more questions so that it can dive more into the information so it can keep me on the hook more. Right? And then the nice thing is, if you look at this, it'll tell you what its sources are. Well, what do we know about some of these things? So what do we know, by the way, about how Zillow deals with gross living space now? Do we all know that Zillow lists all of your finished square footage as the actual square footage? Do we all know that? Yes or yes? It lists finished basements.
Finished basement.
I don't know if ChatGPT is picking some of this up. The other thing to be very, very, very careful about is that it's now giving us legal information about zoning ordinances. I don't know. Do we think that ChatGPT understands zoning ordinances? I don't think so. Do we think that it can give us good legal advice? I don't think so. Right? So this is from the buy side, and we'll go kind of into some more examples too. So if we're dealing with the buyer, and let's say the actual value of it, in my opinion, the actual value is actually probably even a little bit less, right? And we'll see what it sells for. Now, on the flip side, if we're the seller, how much should I list this for? Wow. We have a very different story here, don't we? I would roughly target 325 to 350, 365 to 395, or 425. So AI just told us two very different stories on the same property with two slightly different prompts. And we're going to give it a third prompt. If it were mine, I'd probably list around 389.9 and see how the market responds. Okay? So, and it's still giving us the same information. But if you notice a couple of things that it's now including, public record estimate, which was not included on the buyer one, broader market information, which, by the way, there is not a chance in hell that this is the median listing price in 48412. I live in this zip code. There's no chance. And let's just to test that theory, let's look at the median list price in that area. And then see, here's the thing is, where is it getting its information from?
Important for those who don't know, Peter, you're looking at RealComp.
RealComp's info system.
And
yep.
I believe maybe a couple other of our MLSs might have InfoSparks as a part of it.
Yes. So I think Flex has it. My Real Source, I believe, does. Lori would know that. She's my Real Source broker. So AI just told us the median sales price was $472,000. What does RealComp tell us? Can someone tell me, is that $472,000? No, it is not. All right. I even think that seems a little bit high. And even if we go to average, we're still not, we're off by quite a bit. So not only do I think that we have, in my opinion, some biased information, but we're also not necessarily getting good information.
So, Peter, I'm sitting back and now I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, what do I tell a seller? Do I tell them they're smoking doobies, or do we maybe light one up with them, take a couple gummies?
We're going to have to be, to get a price this high, we're going to have to be high.
Yeah. Or hope the buyer is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think the first place I would start is, if I was going to go and list a property, I would have run this already. And I think
that, so, and by the way, Peter and I haven't rehearsed any of this. So when I'm throwing questions at him, they're off the top of my head. Okay. I hope you have answers. If not, we'll have to make some good ones up.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that was my first thought. Now, we need to look at this from, am I representing a seller or am I representing a buyer? Because it now becomes part of what we need to know going into an appointment. So this research is going to be necessary when we go on listing appointments to find out what is potentially information that they would be looking at.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I would be hesitant to start giving it more, because this is a learning model, right? So the more we feed it, the more it's going to eat. So I'd be careful there. Just like I think that you should go in with an understanding of their Zestimate, because that we know that people are looking at it. Just like we teach in our listing consultations, you should ask if they're thinking about going FSBO. Ignoring the elephant in the room does not take it away.
There you go.
Right? All it does is it means you can't address it. So if we know that our people are using AI, should this maybe be part of one of your pre-listing interview questions? Hey, what have you learned from AI about your home? Right? What kind of searches have you done? What's AI engine are you, or AI platform are you using? So I think that if we go through and we do that research, now sometimes it has been, I've run this with a bunch of different properties now. Sometimes it's fairly spot on. I've done it with, it's a lot more accurate with properties that are already on the MLS than properties that aren't. So for example, I'm going to give you guys another one here, another example.
Well, real quick.
Oh yeah.
The verbiage / dialogue. So one, we need to know what potentially they're going to be seeing.
Yeah.
But if they were to bring this up, how might we handle it? What would we say? What would be the questions we ask?
I think the best answer is always to show rather than to tell. So I think you bring your computer with you, and you actually have these two searches up, just like what I just did, and say, listen, this is what it's telling you if it thinks you're a seller. This is what it tells you if you think you're a buyer. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how do you think that someone who's looking at your home is going to type this search in? Are they going to type in how much should I list for it? Or are they going to say, what should I buy this for? Just go ahead. You can just interrupt.
Have you guys, so you're using ChatGPT here. Have you taken this same prompt and put it in another AI model?
I have. Yep. I've done a couple. Kind of similar. Yeah. Okay. I've done it with Copilot. I've done it with, I haven't done it with Gemini until today.
I played with Gemini a little
I did
bit, getting similar.
Yeah. So similar because they all run on, they run on very different engines, but they all have the same goal, right? They all have the same, because, now I don't know. The only thing that I'm not sure of is how, if you have one of the more advanced paid versions. So I ran this through my paid ChatGPT. I haven't run it through any of the other paid ones. So just to be, full disclosure on that. So I think that conversation I think it would be something that I would bring up in the beginning of pricing. Hey, have you done any research on AI about what they might tell you on price? Oh, you have. Okay, well, let me show you the two sides of this same coin. All right. If you are, it's actually the same reason that we asked. One of the questions on my pre-listing interview is, if you were listing this house, if you were viewing this house through buyer eyes, what would you rate it? Right? We've got to put them on the flip side of the table and help them to see it as a buyer would see it.
So one of the questions that we should always ask is, we want to know, what are they thinking the value of the property is? What are they hoping they could get? There's a lot of ways to ask.
Yeah.
How much do you want to list it for? How much do you want? What are you hoping you could get? Well, one of those things that you might have to do, and maybe we don't go specifically to, what have you done on your research with AI? But rather, how did you determine that?
Yeah.
What sources did you use?
What prompts did you use?
Well, if it's if they say AI, what prompts were you using? Yeah. But it's like, let's pull out what or how, not, because again, in the past, it was simply, well, how much are you hoping to list a home for? And we'd get a number, and that pretty much satisfied us. Well, now we're needing to know, how did you come up with that number?
Yeah, and we've talked about this. We did a class here in Lake Orion and in Lapeer about advanced metrics, where if you had if you didn't have good comps, there's some other metrics that you can help use, which, by the way, if you guys are interested, let me know and I can help you out with that. Another thing, though, that we want to look, so another question I'm going to ask it is going to be, am I overpaying? This is one of the big questions. And we're going to see the same question. Again, the prompts change the answers. Let's look at, oh no, I didn't mean to do an image. Sorry, oops, that was my fault. Here we go. I think this is going to be a very common question. So now we have our third rail here, right? Now let's do this again, right? And again, you'll see I'm using new windows, and the reason for that is so it's not picking up that I just asked about it and learning that. And one of the things that it mentions, so the other thing too, if you notice, and I'm noticing the sources, we just noticed the sources just changed. Yeah. We're not using any of the same sources. The other one was realty.com, the township, right? So this is a real problem. So what we're doing is we're seeing it's cherry picking data to tell me what I want to hear. So I just asked it, if I was a buyer, it told me I could pay $325,000 for it or more. It had told me as a listing agent that I could list it for $389,000, and now it tells me I should pay $230,000 to $245,000. Does anyone think that $160,000 is a reasonable range that should be able to tell us? Is that
also
30%?
Thinking about you
Yeah.
to do with different windows. A lot of people, I had actually an issue with the listing where they'd ask, should I list what should I list my property as, and then it'd give them the inflated value. A lot of people, when you come back and you're like, no, that's way too high, they're gonna say in the same window, it's gonna use a relevancy bias because you ask the same question.
Yes.
It's gonna ask, my realtor suggested we list at said price, and they're gonna be like, your realtor's cutting you short, and it's gonna create kind of like a trust issue.
Exactly. Yes.
And there's that, now it's not unbiased, but biased.
Yeah.
It's going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do, I want to show you two other variants of this to show you how different this is.
You know, you're making a lot of work for me to try to get this posted.
Sorry.
The reason I just made that comment, when I upload to the HRC Agent Development channel, which, by the way, spread the word, I'm finding
Yeah.
more and more agents
Excellent.
still aren't aware of this. I may not be able to get this posted because there's so many different addresses. And when it picks up on
Oh,
addresses,
I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
It doesn't look, well, but we need to do this anyway,
Yeah.
but this may not get up because I don't have 3 days to go through and.
Yeah, because there's a doxing rule on YouTube. So if you put an addresses, it'll flag it. So I totally forgot about that.
Well, but it's the only way.
No way around it.
Doing.
So here's the other thing too. And again, look at our sources just changed again, right? And I asked, am I underselling at this price? Yes, you may be underselling. Now we have 4 different values. Now let's see if we can get a fifth. So I would ask Mr. and Mrs. Seller, well, which ChatGPT or value are you listening to? Value 1, value 2, value 3, value 4?
I was gonna also ask, can you try out kind of like a prior example based off my question where you like
Yeah,
ask,
yep,
what should I list
yep,
as?
I
And
can
then
do that.
reply with my
We'll do,
realtor
yeah,
suggested listing.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we go. Now let's go value number 5. And we have value number 5.
In the middle of both suggestions is so late.
Mm-hmm. So now let's go back to the listed question, like John mentioned. Okay, so I'd list it for this. So now let's ask it. My agent suggested I should list at 275. Are they selling me short? There we go. So now we're saying essentially yes, but so they're now actually giving you a tension point between you and your client, right? My agent thinks your values are off. What's your response?
And it's interesting because if we really think about it, all we're doing is having a conversation. This is all that anybody who really understands AI, it's a conversation.
And here we go. Your agent may be right. I'm walking back some of my earlier confidence. Stunning. Stunning. And have our sources changed? Yes, they have. We have a source change again. So they're cherry picking sources. So these are the conversations you've got to have with your seller. Maybe we can bring it into a more succinct, because you can't sit there and like just pick apart AI piece by piece. But I think that you guys should understand this so that you know when you're sitting in front of a seller to be able to say, hey, by the way, we just did. So I understand that you've been doing some research. Can you show me the research you've been doing? By the way, we just did a class. One of my brokers, we actually looked at this and we were able to come up with 6 different values between 240,000 and 429,000 for this home. Now, what I would ask you, which prompt are you going to believe? By the way, when I challenged it, it walked it back.
Almost like old school, screenshot this and have it
Yeah.
like so you can see like.
I would, so yeah, Jerry, I think it's, have it in
tricks.
our old bag of tricks where we used to have things that we could pull out.
Yeah.
And yet we could do that, or maybe what we need to consider is being able to do what Peter's doing right now and show
Yeah.
them that, look, we can make this thing say just about anything. We could even question it if we're really open to that idea that, well, it's telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Well, what about when somebody says it's wrong?
And here's the problem is now, if I had challenged differently and said, I agree with you, it would then kind of agree with me, right? What if I tried to list it for, which there was suggestion was earlier, 389,000. Now let's see what it says. Is it going to pat me on the back? There we go. We're testing a very different market. Okay, but you were the one that just told me to list it at 389 when I asked what I should list it for. Right up here. We just saw this.
Down there, so it's not.
Yep.
Wow.
I would probably list around 389, and not 4 questions later, would I personally try 389? No, not as my first choice.
By the way, I want to throw one other thing in there that it keeps bringing up apparently is the value, or I don't know what they're calling it, cost per square foot. It doesn't matter. The cost per, and some of you, if you got an opportunity, you'd argue with me on this, but we ain't going to take the time on it.
No.
But cost per square foot has no determination on value. Now, if everything were identical, could we use it?
Thank you.
Yes, but otherwise they don't have it. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, which is funny because I do use price per square foot for some things as a supporting metric, as like a secondary metric. So, but yes, it's got to be very, very, very similar, and you've got to be very, very similar in size. There's a law of diminishing return. It is useful if you go like 8 levels deep. In
Yes,
some ways.
yes.
Which is not, kind of difficult. So here's the thing. We just did this. I was too confident. So I just challenged it on its own answer, and now it's walked it back. Right. So these are the conversations I think that we need to have. If it was me, so what I do when I walk into a listing appointment, I tell them how the Zillow models work. Right. So, hey, the Zillow's, truly realtor.coms, the reason that they work is because they sell data to agents, which means that if we get more juice on our listing, they're going to continue to push us. So I explain to them what the mechanics are behind it. And I say, that's why we want to do these pictures first. We have 4 to 6 seconds to hook somebody. That's why we want to price it in bracket pricing. That's why we want to use these keywords when we list. I think if we go in and we explain to them the same mechanisms of how AI works and what AI is doing, they're going to understand a lot more about why we don't necessarily trust any of this. So I don't think we need to go tit for tat with them on every single little thing. I think that if we pull the curtain back and you see what the Wizard of Oz really is, that I think helps people to understand a lot more. So What questions do you guys have? Just either shout, I can't see the chat. So either shout them out or put them in the chat. Yeah, thanks, Jay. AI trash. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell us what
yeah.
you really think?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it to an extent, you guys seeing what Peter has demonstrated today, it reminds me of what we had to do with his estimate.
Yeah, it's the exact same conversation.
It's really a bit of AI, if you will, because we have no idea of what Zestimate's algorithm was or all of what it was using to be able to come up with the Zestimate. But here's what we know. How often was it accurate? And what did the seller want to do? Well, the seller wanted to use it when it was to their benefit.
Yes.
They didn't want to use it when it was not to their benefit. And obviously opposite for the buyer.
Which a great model, if you guys use Cloud CMA Live, which you should if you are a RealComp subscriber. I think RealSource has it too. I don't know about Flex. There's actually a section of Cloud CMA that actually shows the online variance percentages of your comps. So what did they sell for versus what was the Zestimate? So if you're having trouble with estimates, just showing those can be, again, I always say it's better to show them than to tell them. But if you have any other questions, I think these are great conversations to have.
Let's do this, guys. You guys have had to run into this. You had to run into something where somebody's either telling you AI, be it a buyer, be it a seller. There was some coach or speaker that's talked about AI. Have you run into it? Or more importantly, let me ask the open-ended question. What have you run into?
Darwin, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Deanna, is there any way that he could put this in a very short, sweet video to play at a listing?
Yeah, I could do that.
Because this is very long, and I understand that, but it is so important, right? Is there like, can you almost do it in like a cartoon format of some sort, just to give them a really quick?
Otherwise, a pre-recorded, and we'll have to figure a way
like
to be
here,
able to
don't
do
take
it.
my word for it, but we just
Dave
had
Bellinger
this.
help on that. Yeah, we can do it. I'm gonna need a little bit of help on that, but yeah, we can.
That would be awesome.
I think we can even put it. I think we can even host. I think we can even embed video into Moxie Present. I think.
Yeah,
I'll find out about that. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
These two clowns are already here. Gotta love that guy. Who is he?
Jay.
Wow, Northville's off my list.
One last thing I want to talk about AI here is if people are using it to try and educate themselves as it comes to whether they're considering FSBO or not. And I think that conversation is again a lot like the Zillow conversation. It's a lot that it's if you view your only value as putting it in the MLS, you're going to struggle with this if that's your only value. Now, if you understand your value in not only the marketing that comes from the SEO power of Coldwell Banker, the power that comes from listing concierge on both Coldwell Banker and Century 21. Sorry, I forgot where to make it.
I had your back. It was
and the power now of having listing concierge on both sides, which, by the way, if you have not dived into listing concierge, do that today. The amount of exposure that the listing concierge listings are getting, it's between 7 and 15 times the amount that they're getting on Zillow. But it's also your ability to negotiate. It's all those other things that if you need help on FSBOs, go back, watch Alex's, or sign up for BDS and watch Alex's class on For Sale by Owners. It's fabulous. But AI really has not changed the For Sale by Owner discussion. If anything, I think it's given too much information, and it's now there's almost an information overload, and there's too much data to sift through, and AI doesn't do a very good job of interpreting and expositing information. So just that was one kind of last thing that I wanted to.
What other questions you guys got or suggestions? What have you run into?
What's your favorite AI And why?
I-
And why?
I'm really like the wrong person to ask that to because I am just kind of starting my journey. Um, what do you,
So Claude is really good for situational and prompt-based responses
and creativity,
and creativity.
images, things like that.
Parsuer is probably the best data extrapolation AI.
Get that name again. What is it?
Parsuer.
Can you
Parsuer.
Yeah, so if you have a really long document, you can ask it to summarize it for you and it pull every data point out. Like,
Yeah, conversational. Chat GPT seems to work pretty well for conversational. I think it's really I'm a guy who owns like a dozen different hammers. So it's like saying what's the best hammer? Like, well, for what? So I think that's a hard question. I think it would literally depend on what you're doing.
And keep it simple. Look, I use Chrome. Chrome has Gemini. It's right there. And there's a wee bit of difference between just doing a regular search and then having a conversation with any AI that is there.
And also, so like one of the ones we didn't talk about much is Copilot, which I know is not as popular. Sometimes I'll use Copilot because it syncs with my CBP email. And so if I'm doing things like for the
Copilot is MSN.
Microsoft. Copilot is Microsoft. So again, it kind of depends on what I'm doing. If I'm using it on my phone, but so if I'm doing something personally, I have a ChatGPT account that I use personally. Like if I've got a, hey, the cut my finger question, but then I don't necessarily want that meshed in with some of my work stuff. So that's kind of how I view that too.
What others? Well, then.
Okay, I'll ask another question.
All right.
So, I'm really glad that you came today because I never, ever thought of asking AI about, on the seller side or the buyer side. So you've opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. I've used it to create flyers and I've jumped back and forth between Claude and ChatGPT. Like when my time ran out, I would jump over to ChatGPT and have it clean it up. And then I go over to Canva. So that has been fun, but this is a whole new ball game that I cannot wait to get into. So thank you for sharing these 5 ways. And I cannot wait to see the cartoon that you create so that we can share that.
Now we're on the hook for a cartoon.
Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll see. That we're gonna need some real assistance for. So if anyone knows anything, I am not artistic at all. My 5-year-old's a better, better animator than I am probably. So maybe I'll have my 5-year-old draw. We'll see.
Get her on
Well,
it.
Lydia, thank you for that because that was, really what we continue to do is just open the eyes because we're literally touching the proverbial tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's so much under the water about AI that we still don't know. What could we use it for? How will it be used against us? What are we going to be running into that's below the water that we can't even see yet? So keep it out there. Let us know. And, we wanted to get Jay in here to kind of get his thoughts on this too, but he had a previous engagement at noon. And again, it was hot topic. So when did we plan this?
Yesterday.
Yes. Just wanted you all to know.
Yesterday at like 11 a.m. Yeah.
So next week, I've been letting you all know, but now it's come. We are at the end of summer. And on the 25th, next Tuesday, we've got Brian Westron, who is Michigan Realtors legal counsel, who in particular, we're going to have him talk about what they are experiencing at a statewide level within Michigan Realtors on seller disclosure, which you think, well, that's pretty simple. He's done 2 of the letters from the mailbag, I believe it is, that it's been on seller's disclosure. So be here for that next week. Obviously, every week it's the same login, same password. And guys, if we can get this up there, or I can get you access to it somehow, we will do that. Or if anybody asks about it today, we'll find a way to be able to get access so that everybody has it at least on a temporary basis. Outside of that, that wraps up another Hot Topic Tuesday. Keep coming with them. Send the answers to me, or I should say the questions. I'm supposed to have the answers. And guys, if you ever have one that you guys think, man, this is really there's a passion that you have, bring it to me. I'd love to be able to host you. Or if you say, here's somebody, Darwin, you should bring on an interview, let me know who that is too, and we'll see what we can do to be able to get them on a future Hot Topic. So with that, guys, that wraps it up. See you next week. Brian Westron, be here.